in this little chat that we have after our Friday service, I was going to speak about something else, but I will continue with something that I started a fortnight ago, which was in answer to a question, why Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is of such importance to Islam. And if we look at the news every day and then consider what is happening in the world in the light of the writings of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, we will understand why he is of such great importance for propagation of Islam, perhaps even survival of Islam. Let me give you one example where Sunni Muslims, there are hundreds of these examples. Not one, there are hundreds of these examples where Sunni Muslims are following Hazrat Masih Maud, although they would not admit to it. Let me give you one example. According to non-Ahmadis, it is haram, it is unlawful for Muslims to live in a country where they are not in a majority. This is not in the Quran, this is not in the Hadith. In fact, it's against the specific instructions of the Hadith, of the Holy Prophet Muhammad in Hadith, where he said to gain knowledge, go to China even if you have to. How many Muslims would China have had if someone from Saudi Arabia had gone there 1500 years ago? Probably been the only Muslim there. But the jurists who came much later divided the world into two parts, Darus Salam and Darul Harb. Darus Salam, where fighting is not permitted. Darul Harb, where fighting is permitted. I mean, let us overlook the fact that in Darus Salam there was much fighting going on. Well, let's take just the example of India, where every time a Mughal king died, his sons resorted to arms to decide who the next king or the emperor was going to be. So, but let's leave that aside. Now, Darul Harb is all those countries where Muslims are in a minority. And at one time, the jurists in India, they declared that India was Darul Harb, it was haram to live in India, and all Muslims should migrate from India. So thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Muslims sold up their land, sold up their houses, sold up their businesses. And you can imagine if in Slough suddenly 100,000 people put their houses up for sale, what that is going to do to the price of those houses. And these people knew that they have to sell these houses because it's no longer lawful for them to live here and they have to leave. And so they tried to migrate. And they got to the borders of Iran and Afghanistan, and what happened? Did they say, please come in, you are our Muslim brothers? They said, where are you going? You come into our country and we'll shoot you dead. We can't take on hundreds of thousands of people migrating from India into Afghanistan and Iran. Go back. And of course they went back and they had lost everything. So later on, what has happened in this century? We have Muslims in England. Are we in a majority in England? We are a tiny, tiny, tiny minority in England. There are Muslims in France. Are we a majority in France? We are a tiny, tiny, tiny minority in France. And Germany and Holland and America and Canada and Suriname and Guyana, and the list is endless. So why are we here? According to our Suni brothers' articles of faith, it is unlawful for us to be in these countries. In fact, according to Sunni fiqh, we shouldn't even be saying Friday prayers in these countries. Recently, Maulvi Sahib went to Suriname from Pakistan and he gave this fatwa. He said, you must stop all Friday prayers in Suriname. You must not say any congregational prayers. You must stay at home and say your prayers privately, because this is not a Muslim majority country. The question is, why don't we migrate? Oh, we don't believe in this. Lahori Ahmadis don't believe in this. But those who do believe in this, why do they not migrate to Islamic countries? Is Pakistan prepared to take all the Muslims in India? There's more Muslims in India than there in Pakistan. The population will double overnight. Are they prepared to do that? Of course they're not. For sound economic and other reasons. But Hazrat Sahib said, let us follow the example of the companions of the Holy Prophet. Let us go out and spread Islam. Let's go to the countries where no one knows about Islam. Hazrat Khwaja Kamaluddin Sahib came to England. How many Muslims were there? Even less, much less than today. And he propagated Islam here. Maulana Sadruddin went to Germany. How many Muslims were there in Germany? And he worked for propagation of Islam there. There was an American, he used to be the American ambassador to Philippines, who embraced Islam. Hazrat Sahib didn't ask him to come and sit in Qadian or in India or Afghanistan or Iran. He told him, go to America and preach Islam there. We now have a Quilliam Foundation in the UK. He was in touch with Hazrat Mirza Sahib. He was an English solicitor who embraced Islam. He went to, I think, Turkey and became impressed by Islam and embraced Islam. And he was in contact with Hazrat Sahib. Hazrat Sahib didn't say to him, come and sit with me in Qadian. What are you doing in England? You're just one person in the whole of England. He said to him, preach Islam. Advertisements for Quilliam's magazine used to appear in Ahmadiyya newspapers until the Jamaat split into, until that movement came to an end. And Quilliam then joined the working Muslim mission, and they started working in cooperation with them. But when you see this, just compare this one article of belief between Ahl Sunnat wal Jamaat and Ahmadis. It was the reform brought by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad that made it possible for Muslims to migrate to other lands, to settle there as citizens of that country, to take part in the political, economic and social life of that country, and to present themselves as ideals of citizenship, model citizens, that allowed Islam to be propagated so successfully both in England and Germany and later on Holland. This is the importance of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, that all the rust, all the dirt, all the debris upon the real teachings of Islam, which had gathered dust for 1500 years, he cleaned it all. He removed that rust. He polished the teachings of Islam, and he presented them to Muslims and to non-Muslims. It doesn't matter two hoots to me that Muslims deny him and reject him and so on and so forth. Because what I see is that in practice and in practical terms, they're accepting his teachings and they're doing what he said is required if Islam is to survive in this age, and if Islam is to make progress, and if it's to be propagated.